Hi, welcome to DonskyTech. Would you like to create your own custom IoT web application for your electronic circuit but you don't know HTML, CSS, JavaScript? In this video, I will share with you how you can use nodered and the new Flow Fuse Dashboard 2.0 package to quickly build web user interface that will control your Arduino electronic circuits. Using the browser-based flow editing feature of nodered, then we can easily create web user interface. We can then configure it to communicate with an MQTT broker such as the Mosquitto to publish messages. We program our Arduino electronic circuit to subscribe or listen to MQTT topics. Once a message is received by the Mosquitto MQTT broker, then an MQTT message is forwarded to our Arduino circuit. Our circuit can then light up the LED, change the RGB color, or move the servo motor. In minutes, you could develop your own IoT application capable of controlling your circuits without programming any HTML, CSS, JavaScript. How cool is that?
So for the demo of the program or this project, I have here my web application that I have created using the nodered flows here and the new dashboard 2.0 library by Flow Fuse. And as you have noticed, I only have this node here, and I was able to create a web application without programming any HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. And beside here is my circuit where I am using an ESP32 with an RGB LED, an LED, and a servo motor SG90 together with my external power supply that will power up the SG90 and an external capacitor just to prevent the servo jitter. So as you can see in the web application that I have created with nodered, if I toggle the LED button here like this one, then you would notice that the LED turn on. If I click the red here in the RGB, then you would notice that the RGB turned red, green, and then the blue. So using this RGB position option, I can change the color of the RGB. And for the servo group, if I set the servo position like 180, then you would notice that the servo position indeed moved. So let's try with going into the 90. Now it's in the 90-degree angle. Go into the 45. So it's now in the 45. Same also with the 140. So the servo position changes. And if we set it back to the 0 position, then it's now in the 0 position. And as you can see, the messages that I have here in the nodered is being passed using the MQTT or my Mosquitto MQTT server. So the web application that I have created using only nodered flows is using the Mosquitto MQTT server to pass in the messages into my Arduino circuit so that I can control the my electronic circuit using my web application. So as you can see, using the power of nodered and the new dashboard 2.0, then we are able to create web application or IoT application without having to know much about the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so to begin with our project, then we need to have access to an existing nodered installation. So I have here my nodered running on a Windows 11 machine. As you can see, this is the nodered terminal or command prompt. I also have a running Mosquitto MQTT server here. so that I will use the Mosquitto MQTT server to pass in the messages coming from my nodered dashboard. Okay, so to begin with using the dashboard 2.0, go into your manage palette, and then in the install section, search for the nodered dashboard. So you will see the old nodered dashboard here, and there's also the one that is the new nodered dashboard created by the Plopius company. So just click the install button here, and then click the install. Okay, so once the installation is finished, just click close here. So the very first thing that you would notice here is that it created a new set of nodes under the dashboard too. So the very first thing that we need to do is to add several buttons or widgets or nodes, additional nodes for our web application. So for example, begin working with the dashboard 2 nodes. Let's first create a new flow. So let's name this flow as Arduino red MQTT. So click done. So we now have a flow here. Then we go into the switch button here. So when you drag down the switch node here, you would notice the small triangle here, which means that we need to configure some properties. So right now, we need to manually update or set several properties for this particular node, but you will just do this one time. So, but then I noticed that there is a new issue in the Plopius nodered dashboard that they are planning to automate the configuration. So, but for now, what you can do is just drag the first node and then double click. It will tell you that you need to create a new group. So, what you can do is you click the add new group and then click this pencil button here. And then let's say this is the LED group. And then it will tell you that you need to create a page. So just click create the new page here. So in this new page, it says that we need to create a new UI base. So let's say the page name here is the home page or home page. So the path would be, we change it to home, and then the icon would be home. We just need to create a new UI base. So this is our new UI base. So let's just say our UI base is the nodered MQTT, and then the path would be dashboards. For the style option, let's just accept the default, which is the collapsing. Then click add. For the themes, let's just create a new theme here. And then click, let's say, the nodered MQTT theme. And then just click the add. Okay. Now that we have created the UI page, the theme, and then just click add. And then the group is LED group, and then click add again. Then click done. So for the name of the switch node, let's just say this is the LED switch. And for the label, let's say we add toggle LED. And then just click the done. Okay. Now that the LED switch is created here, if you go into the configuration nodes, you would notice that it created several hierarchy here. So we have a UI base here, the group, the page, and the theme. So right now, we have the LED switch in here. So if we click the deploy button, so it says that it is successfully deployed. Now there is a context menu here called the dashboard 2.0, and if you click the open dashboard at the right hand side, you would notice that it created the LED group, and then we have the toggle LED here, but it is not centered right now. So it says it's home page. So if we want to center the content here, we could go back into our configuration nodes, and let's go into the UI page, and in the layout, just select the notebook type. In the notebook type, it just will create several partition, wherein each partition will be set aside and be put on top of each other. So let's set the notebook type, update, and then click the deploy. Once we deploy this, you would notice that we now have the toggle LED group and the toggle LED here. We will use the first one to control our LED. And now we need to add the ability to change the color of the RGB. So we will use the radio group here. And in the radio group here, what we're going to do is we will create a new UI group, and we will say it is the RGB group, and we click add, and then for the label, let's say choose color, and then for the name, let's say this is for the RGB select. Okay, for the value, we need to add 3. So let's say we wanted this to be a red, and then the value would be red, and then green would be green, the label would be blue, and then it would be blue here. And then once everything is okay, we click done. Okay, right now we have the RGB LED. If we go again into our dashboard, then you would notice that there is an RGB group here. Now let's click deploy. Once we have clicked the deploy, you would notice that there is now choose color, and then the red, green, and the blue. Next, we will need to add the ability to change the position of the servo. With that, we need the switch button. We need the slider button. So in the slider button, what we're going to do is to create again a new group. So for the name of the group, what we're going to do is to set this into the servo group. Okay, and then we click update. And for the name of the group, let's say servo movement. And then for the label, we just say set servo position. And for the range, it would be 0 up to the 180 degree. Since the servo will move from 0 to 180, the step would be 5. And for the output, we just wanted to send the message once we click or release the mouse. So we'll click the only on release here. Once everything is okay, we just click the done button here. Okay, now we have this servo movement. And as you can see, it is under the servo group, so there is some problem. So let's go back in here, and let's edit this one. This should be LED group, and then we click update, and then done. So what we'll need to do is just create a new UI group, and then let's just say this is servo group, and then click add. Once it is added, we click done. So right now, if we take a look at our user interface here, we have the LED group, RGB, and the servo group, and then we click deploy. Once we have deployed everything, you would notice that I have here the servo group, RGB, and the LED. So you can now move the value here, and you would notice that it is 0 to 180. Okay? Now, the next thing that we need to do is I wanted to show some messages when I click the LED switch or the RGB select. So to do that, we can do the notification. So in the notification, you just select the base to the nodered MQTT dashboard. And let's just say this is the notification. And then the position would be top right, and then we click done. Now with the notification, what we can do is just drag the node of the LED switch, the RGB select, and the servo movement. Okay. After connecting these three to the notification, let's click deploy. Now that the deploy is created, once we click the toggle switch here, you would notice that it says true. And if we move it to the left, it says false, true. Same also with the color here. If we select red, we'll select red, green, blue. Okay. Now, if we move the servo, you would see that when I release my mouse, it says 40, and then it says 140 and 175. So we have created now the user interface that we are going to use to control our Arduino circuit. So in the previous part of the video, we were able to create the user interface of our IoT application. So right now, we have created the toggle LED that will turn on or turn off the LED, and the RGB using the option, and the servo position using this slider. So the next thing that we need to configure is the sending of the MQTT from this user interface into our MQTT server. So in my terminal, I have run the Mosquitto MQTT server. So I have the Mosquitto MQTT server here. So once the Mosquitto MQTT server is created, then we just need to configure our dashboard to be able to connect or send messages to our Mosquitto MQTT server. And to do that, let's go back into our nodered flows. And the next thing that we need to configure is to set an MQTT messages. So we'll be using an MQTT out. So in this MQTT out, we just need to configure a broker or an MQTT. So let's create a new MQTT broker. For this broker, let's say this is the Mosquitto MQTT broker. And for the server, I just use the localhost. Okay, and then let's click add. So right now, we have the Mosquitto MQTT broker. For the topic, I will just leave this blank for now because I wanted to send this, to make this topic to be dynamic, such that when I click the toggle LED, then it will publish a message with the subject toggle LED. And when I choose RGB, then I should send a new message to a new topic. Same also with the servo group. And to do that, what we can do is to use what we call as the change node in nodered. So in the change node, we just need to put the change node in between the LED switch and the MQTT out node, and we just need to connect them together. Once they are connected, then we need to double click the message. And in this case, what we wanted to do is that we wanted to set the values incoming from the payload, for example, the LED switch into the MQTT out. So in this case, let's set the message into the payload also. And then we click done. Oops, I forgot. We also need to set the topic. So for the topic, I'll be setting this one. And the name would be message.topic. And it would be a string. Since I'm using the LED switch, I'm just going to set the toggle LED here. And then post it there. And I'm also going to set the QoS. So this will just be a string with the value of 1. And then I click done. And then once the setup is there, for us to verify if everything is working correctly, let's add a debug node. So in the debug node here, I'll just drop the debug node here, and then I'll put it here also. In the debug configuration, I wanted to print the complete payload and then click done. And then once everything is okay, I'll just deploy it. Okay, once it is deployed, we can go into the debug messages and let's go back into our user interface. So as you can see, the MQTT is now connected, which means that we are able to connect to our Mosquitto MQTT server. And right here, I am going to publish for the topic toggle LED. Okay, so for test purposes, what we can do is we can open a new terminal, and using the Mosquitto command, Mosquitto sub, we'll use the subscribe, and then the topic would be toggle LED and the host will be localhost. I click enter. So right now, what will happen is that whatever we do with the toggle LED switch, then we should be able to receive message here. So let's try. So since we have already deployed, let's go into our home and then let's click this one. So it says true. Then we should be able to receive true here. Okay, so which means that we are able to receive true. So I'm just going to put this side by side. So if I click this one, false, I receive false, true, false, true. So in here, we are able to receive the messages coming from our toggling of the LED switch, which is fine and okay. So right now, what we can do is we follow the same with the RGB select and the servo movement. And by the way, as you can see in the debug messages here, you would notice that this is the message that is coming from our debug. And the payload would be something like this, and the topic would be toggle LED. And it has the QoS of 1. So right now, when I click the LED switch, it will be able to send the messages into our MQTT out node, and we are dynamically changing the value of the topic and the payload that we're going to send to our MQTT Mosquitto server. So what we're going to do is just copy this one also. So let's say we name this one to LED change node. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste it here. Now I'm going to change this one to RGB change node, and I wanted to change the topic from toggle LED to RGB color set. So this would be the name of the topic. The QoS and the payload would be the same. I click done, and then for the RGB select, I'm just going to pass it here and connect it also here. Same also for the RGB, I'll copy also. Then I'm going to change this into the servo change node. In the servo change node, we'll just set the topic into servo position set. And then we click done. And then we need to wire it also from this one into this one, and this one into this one. Oops. This one into this one. Same also with the RGB change node. We use one MQTT out node. Okay, so right now our LED switch is in here. Our LED node is in this part, and I have an MQTT node here. notification comes in here, and the debug will come at this side. So I'm going to deploy, and then I'll just delete this one. And then the next thing that we need to do is go into the home. Okay, and in my test command prompt, let's say we wanted to subscribe into the RGB change node. So what we can do is we copy the RGB color set topic. Oops. RGB color set topic here. And we just change the topic into, we're going to subscribe to the RGB color set, and we click enter. Now we go back into our home dashboard, and then what I'm expecting is if I click red, then I should be able to receive a message red here. Let's see. You see, I am receiving a red, green, blue, which means that everything is working perfect. Okay, now let's try subscribing into the other one, which is the servo position set. Okay, so in the servo position set, I just cancel this one, and I'm going to set the topic into this one, and then I click enter. Now, when I change the servo here, I should receive a message incoming from our dashboard. And as you can see, I have received 145, 40, 10, and 155. So the moment I release the mouse, then I am receiving an MQTT message which will instruct our servo motor to move in that particular angle or degree. So in this particular part of the tutorial, as you can see, we are able to receive and transfer messages coming from our nodered dashboard into our terminal, and we are able to subscribe to different topics that we can listen to, so that whenever we do something in our web application, then we are able to receive it in our terminal. Later in the next section, I'm going to show you how the changes that we are doing here will be reflected into our Arduino circuit. So as you can see from this part of the application, it's quite easy to configure the sending of MQTT messages just by dragging nodes without you knowing how it is being done or being sent. So if you're not familiar with programming with web application, such as programming HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, that's where the low-code software such as nodered will come handy in the future. So in the next part of the video, we are going to connect our Arduino circuit into our nodered application. So now I'm going to discuss the Arduino project that I have created, so that you would know also how the program works. So the project that I have here is available on my GitHub repository. So it is available in the description of this video. And as you can see, when you check the platform.ini, oh, by the way, I'm using the platform.io IDE in developing this project, but you can use the Arduino IDE if you're comfortable with it. So going back, the library dependencies for this project is only the PubSub client and the ESP32 servo. And the PubSub client is used to receive messages using MQTT, and the ESP32 servo library is used to move the servo. And when you go into our main.cpp, this is actually the whole program that I have created to control my electronic circuit. So let's now try to run over each line of the code so that you will understand how it works. So the very first thing is to include the different header files for our project. So we need to communicate using the MQTT. So I have here the PubSub, And since we need Wi-Fi, so if we have the Wi-Fi.h here and the ESP32 servo. Next, you need to update the SSID and the password to match your Wi-Fi network configuration. And for the MQTT server, just make sure to change it to match the IP address of your MQTT. If you're using a different MQTT server, then just put it here also. Next, I have here created a Wi-Fi client and a PubSub client. Next, this is the list of the LED topics that I have. So as you can see, I'm subscribing to the toggle LED, the RGB color set, and the servo position set. If you would go back into my nodered flows and my change node, notice that in the topic section, I have here the value as toggle LED, and it matches also whatever is the value here. So in the Arduino code, I'm just subscribing to this particular MQTT topic. Next, I have just declared some of the hardware pins for the servo, the RGB, and the LED. And I have created a forward declaration of the functions that I'm going to use for this project. So let's just go over the other parts of the code. For the setup, as you would notice, I just initialized the serial baud rate, and then I connected using the setup Wi-Fi connection. Okay. Next, I have set up the MQTT connection here and the callback function that will be called whenever we receive an MQTT message, and we initialize the pin. After which, we have set here the movement of the servo. So I have just set the period as 50 Hertz, and then for the servo pin, I have set the minimum and maximum to 500 and to 450. You can adjust it depending on your particular servo. In the loop function, as you would notice, I just continually check if I'm connected with the MQTT. Then I just pass in the reconnect function. If not, then I just continue looping and wait for MQTT messages. In the setup Wi-Fi, as you could see, I'm just connecting to my Wi-Fi by passing in the SSID and the password, and then wait until I am connected. Next, in the MQTT callback, as you would notice, I extracted the name of the value of the payload, and then I'm checking the topic. If it is about the LED toggling, then I call the handle LED toggling function. If it's about RGB color set, then I'll call the handle RGB message. Same also with the servo position. In the reconnect function, I just continually check if I am still connected using my client. Then if it's not, then I'm just going to reconnect using the client.connect and resubscribe again. After which, in the handle LED message, what I'm doing is if I receive a true, then I'll just turn on the LED. Otherwise, I'll turn it off. Next, in the handle RGB message, I'll just check what value is being passed in. Like if it's red, green, and then blue, then I'll just use the analog write to set the value of the RGB. Next, for the handle servo message, I'll just check the value that is being sent by my web application, and then parse it down, and then set the servo position, and then call the write function, and then wait for some time to move the servo into a particular position. So in this manner, this full program is what I'm using to control my Arduino circuit. And then just by using this web application or this IoT application, then you can web control your application. As I have mentioned time and time again, I did not create the web application here. So I did not program any HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Only using the nodered flows. Now let's touch about the topic about the changing the color or changing the theme of your web application or IoT application. And as you can see right now, the user interface that I have is only pure white. So if you wanted to change the color here, then by using the nodered theming, nodered dashboard to theming, then we can change the color of your IoT application. It's actually easy, and you don't need to know so much about how to set the color for each HTML element. What you can do is just go back into your nodered flows, then go into the configuration node, and in the UI theme here, double click it. You would see that I have here a dashboard and a navigation, and I have here the pages and the groups. What we can do is just change the value of the this navigation color so that it will affect our web interface. So I have here a sample. So let's change this to the value of the navigation. So I just click this one, and then 020045. This looks okay. And then let's click update, and then we deploy. Once we deployed, then you would notice that the application now changes into this blue. Next, we can change also the group. So for the group, what I wanted is to change the background color to a little shade of blue. So what we can do is click again the UI theme, and in the group section, I'll change again the color into a different hues. So 00317A. So right now it is, let me check, click enter. So 00317A, and then we click update, and then we deploy. Now as you can see, we are able to change the color of the LED color right now. So it's quite bluish in color. So what we can do by just changing the value that I have here in my UI theme, then you could play around with the colors here so that you can alter the looks of your user interface. But this is just basic changes that I did. So what I have shown you here is just the basic theming process. So by changing the color, then you are able to change the look and feel of your IoT application developed using Node-RED without you knowing so much about how to do this using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And the good thing about the design of this Node-RED dashboard 2 is that when you go and activate it, check the output in a mobile phone, click like this one, you would notice that it aligns perfectly, which means that using your mobile phone, then you would be able to see the values and change it accordingly as the user interface is mobile responsive. So as I have shown you in this project and in the step-by-step process, it's quite easy to use the new Node-RED Dashboard 2.0 library in your application, and it is easy to generate or create a web application or an IoT application for your project without knowing so much about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All you need to do is just understand how to use the different Node-RED flows and connect it with each other and set the configuration for each node. So this is one of the power of the Node-RED low-code platform, such that the beginner or those that are not expert in web application are still able to generate or create their own IoT apps. So that's how easy it is to develop IoT application without extensive knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript using only the low-code platform Node-RED. And the introduction of the Node-RED Dashboard 2.0 will make your user interface much better. So I hope this has been a lengthy video, but it's a step-by-step process for you to get started about using the Node-RED Dashboard 2.0 and MQTT in your application. So I hope you have learned something. The write-up for this, if you would like to see the write-up for this video, then head over to my blog, which you can find in the description of this video. The code that I have used here, including the flows, are available also in my blog and in the description of this video.